Hi, I'm Scott Lord, and you're listening to Verse by Verse. Long ago, I worked as a waiter in a high-end restaurant in Northern California. The maitre d' that I worked for had been butler to General William Westmoreland. For those who don't recognize that name, General Westmoreland was the commander of U.S. Armed Forces during the Vietnam War from 1964 to 1968. The man that I worked for, we'll call him Robert, had some very strict rules for his waiting staff. He limited the number of tables that we had so that we could give attentive service to our guests. He had a famous saying. He said, if a person has to ask you for something, you're not doing your job. And if they have to ask twice, you're fired. When he would receive quizzical looks from waiters about what he meant by that, he would go on to explain it this way. He would say, if you notice someone is reaching for the bread basket and you notice that there's no butter in the butter dish, you should be on your way and back to the table with more butter before they even have to ask. If you notice the water glass is nearing empty, you should be there with the pitcher to refill it before they have to ask. Remember, your job is to anticipate and meet their needs before they recognize them. The only way to do this is to observe them, to pay attention to your patrons. Remember, you are servants. That's what we do. We serve. Bob was very demanding in his expectations of service. If someone stopped him and asked for something that we had overlooked or forgotten, he would have a talk with us after work. Serving this way was very rewarding. We would regularly hear comments from patrons about how well attended to they were. We'd get good tips because we had so few tables to focus on. We would be able to focus on our guests and not be spread all over the restaurant. Working for Bob as I did, I learned something far more important than being an attentive waiter. What I actually learned was a very important part of how to be a good servant. The Bible speaks a great deal about servants, various kinds of them. In fact, there's over 400 verses in the King James Bible that use the word servant or some form of it. There are 13 different Greek and Hebrew words used to describe servants, far more ideas than we have time to address here in this podcast. But generally speaking, they fall into several broad categories. There are household servants, including personal aides, laborers, hired servants, and even bond slaves. If you'd like to gain a little more insight on what the Bible says about being a servant, you might spend some time studying each of these different words. Each one shows you a nuanced view of attending to the needs of other people. Each one tells us a little bit more about how to be a servant. But whichever word you choose to examine, they all have this in common. A servant has to please his master. We all have to follow the direction of our leader, of our ruler. Those of us who are blessed to be servants of Jesus Christ have a kind, loving master who cares not just for those who serve him, because he serves everyone. On the night he was betrayed while celebrating the Passover with his disciples, Jesus said, "Whoever desires to be first among you, let him be your slave. Just as the Son of Man did not come to be served, but to serve, and to give his life a ransom for many." That was Matthew chapter 20, verses 27 and 28. Did you notice? Our Master did not come to be served, but to serve. Our Master is a servant. We are servants of the servant, Jesus Christ. He understands what service is. He demonstrated it. He expects his servants to do the same, which brings me to the main verse I wanted to discuss today. It is found in Psalm 123. The passage is found in the book of Psalms among the Songs of Ascent, and most biblical scholars believe that the Songs of Ascent were written for the priests to sing during the festival seasons. Psalm 123 verses 1 and 2 say this, "Unto you I lift up my eyes, O you who dwell in the heavens. Behold, as the eyes of a servant look to the hands of their masters, and as the eyes of a maid to the hands of their mistress, so our eyes look to the Lord our God until he has mercy on us." Psalm 123, verses 1 and 2. You see, good servants pay attention to their masters, to see what their masters are doing, where their hand is reaching, what they're grasping at. They anticipate and participate in the work of their master. We who are blessed to serve the great servant are expected to watch to anticipate what he is doing. We are to be ready to assist him in his service of mankind. And that's what I learned while being a waiter. I learned to anticipate. I learned to attend to. I learned to watch. I learned to be ready to help. I learned to serve.
Verse by Verse is a Life, Hope, and Truth podcast. Check out the show notes to find more free content, like videos, articles, and booklets in our Learning Center.